I'm Opal Grant, 28, night shift RN, at Cass Corridor General, our little brick ship, riding the gray waves of Detroit after midnight. If you've never walked a hospital at 3 a.m., it's a world that swims. The fluorescents hum, vents breathe, coffee is currency, and mercy lives in tiny plastic cups. That's where I feel most like myself. It's also where I was blindsided. I started nights straight out of orientation. Some people dread them, but I loved the rhythm. Fewer families, fewer suits, more time to actually nurse, and the pay bump? It mattered. Student loans don't care about your circadian rhythm. Neither does my mother's pharmacy app. The night this story begins, January wind had Detroit sounding like an old door. I tucked my scrubs into warm socks, swiped in, and found my name on the whiteboard ICU overflow. Beds, 6 through 9, my favorite zone. The sickest patients. The work that makes your heart thrum like a bass drum and your hands steady as a metronome. Look at you, Grant. Queen of the graveyard? Taryn said, sliding up beside me at the nurse's station. Her ponytail was so tight it looked like a challenge. Taryn Cole, mid-30s, day shift darling who'd been trying to inch into nights for months. She had a smile like a gleaming blade and a way of tilting her head when management walked by. Like a sunflower rotating toward authority. Just doing what I do, I said, logging into the charting system. She tapped a nail on the counter. Enjoy it while it lasts. I laughed because that's what you do when someone says something weird before midnight caffeine. It wasn't funny in the morning. At 7:15 a.m., as the day shift surged in with perfume and pastries, Donna, the night supervisor, stepped out of her office with a manila folder and the kind of neutral face people wear to funerals. Opal, quick minute? The phrase that works like a trap door. I followed her into the tiny office, lined with outdated CPR posters. A space heater ticked in the corner. She closed the door and sat, like she needed to ground herself against what was coming. I'm going to say this straight, she said. We received multiple patient complaints about you. I blinked. About me? 3 anonymized reports since last week. Concerns about your attitude, communication, and medication timing. The room tipped for a second. The word medication is a grenade in nursing. What are you talking about? My med times are clean. Check EMR. I did. Your documentation is good. She looked at the folder anyway, as if it might argue back, but policy requires we take complaints seriously. Until we complete the review, I need to take you off premium nights. You'll be reassigned to med-surg days for 2 weeks. I felt my face heat like a burn. Donna, that differential covers my mom's inhalers. I know. And she did know. We'd traded war stories at 4 a.m., more than once. I don't think you hurt anyone, Opal. But perception matters. Whose perception? My voice cracked. Anonymous? HR will reach out, in the meantime. She slid a printed schedule toward me. Half my night blocks were gone. Someone's initials were penciled in next to them. T.C. Taryn Cole. For a second, all I heard was the heater tick and the elevator dinging down the hall like a heart monitor. This looks like you've already decided, I said. As of now, it's temporary. Donna chose her words like stepping stones across a river. We just need to do our due diligence. Due diligence is hospital for cover your ass. I walked out of the office with my throat tight and my hands numb, while day shift hustled past me humming with morning energy, the scent of cinnamon and hand sanitizer layered like a weird perfume. At the station, Taryn leaned in, scanning the board, lips pursed as if doing mental math. Oh, she said, feigning surprise. Look at that. Nights opened up. I stared at her, the folder of my suddenly fragile professional life sweating in my palms. Did you hear I'm off nights? Someone mentioned Donna was shuffling things. She widened her eyes in a fake sympathy way. Bureaucracy. Right? Anyway, congrats to me? Bile rose into my mouth and I swallowed it hard, because you can't puke on the nurse's station and still be the reliable one. On the bus home, Detroit blurred in the window like someone had smudged the whole city with a thumb. I counted the math of lost shifts doing damage across the month. I counted my mother's wheezing when the furnace struggled. I counted the way Taryn had said, enjoy it while it lasts. Anger bloomed like a bruise I kept pressing. My apartment smelled like last night's heap of scrubs, linen, sanitizer, and a ghost of hospital coffee. I sank onto the futon and scrolled through the anonymous complaint portal link Donna had sent me. Patient complaint #. Nurse was rude when I asked for water. She rolled her eyes and said I should use the call light like everyone else. She took forever with my pain meds. I don't roll my eyes at patients. The only time my eyes roll is when I'm shoving a 600-pound med cart down a hall with one wheel that thinks it's auditioning for a Broadway solo. Complaint #2. Nurse Opal wouldn't explain my medication, just pushed it and left. Absolutely not. I live for med explanations: what, why, and what your pee might look like after. Complaint #3. She left me with my IV beeping for 20 minutes. Beeping? You can hear that sound in your sleep. It drills into your skull until you fix it just to make it stop. Each complaint had this smudged, vague quality, like someone thinking, what annoys patients, and checking boxes. But the web form stripped out names and dates for privacy. So who, and when? I opened my charting. My EMR was airtight. PRNs scanned and documented, pain scores like a neat bar graph, education boxes ticked with sentences that sounded like me. Discuss side effects. Patient repeated back understanding. I'm corny like that. The rage was trying to turn into shame. That trick of the brain, where you start apologizing to an empty room. No. I clicked into the audit trails. Our software logs everything: who opens a chart, who enters a note, who prints. That's how you survive. If it happened in the system, it happened. The next night, my first day shift purgatory, I wore scrubs that felt like borrowed skin. Med-surg was bright and loud, and smelled like microwaved spaghetti. Nobody said, "Hey, Night Queen," they said, "Can you take the discharge in 4B? And I said yes, because saying no is not a nurse language. At noon, on my break, I took my coffee to the computer in the corner by the flickering vending machine and pulled the complaint portal up again. Then I opened my own patient list from the week before and matched possible timelines by hand, hunting for anything that felt off. I almost missed it. Complaint #. Mentioned Percocet at 2, disrespect at 1:30. She took forever with my pain meds, but the patient, it could be the only one with Percocet ordered that night, had been discharged at 0:45. I signed the discharge. I watched her hug her granddaughter and wheel out under a blue blanket. There was no 2 for her. I checked the EMR. Heart thumping. The 2 dose was given on paper marked manual entry due to scanner down by Opal Grant. I stared at my own name, stamped under a med pass that couldn't exist. A manual entry. The kind you use when the scanner really is down. The kind you can't barcode verify. My hands went cold, even though the room was hot with stale pizza heat. Someone used my initials. Someone logged a manual med under my name after the patient left. I looked at the audit log. The entry time-stamped 2/8 had an originating workstation ID. I didn't recognize a string of numbers and letters like a license plate. CCGNS 342. I wrote it down. But I could ask IT which station had that ID. Or I could, I don't know, summon the ghost of Florence Nightingale and ask her to hack the mainframe. I took a breath and thought like a night nurse. When you don't have resources, you improvise. The nurses' station computers have stickers with their IDs. The ICU has 8 of them, NS1 through NS8. Med-surg has 1,000. If I could match the pattern, I could figure where the falsified entry came from. Grant, someone called, dragging me back. Transport needs help with a combative in 3C. I went. You always go. By the time the day ended, I was wrung out and steady in that floaty way you get after 14 hours of walking and making decisions about other people's bodies. At the exit, I passed the ICU to peek in like the homesick kid I was. That's where I saw it. Taryn at the station, hair perfect, a cup of premium coffee the night shift can only dream about, sliding into the chair in front of NS3. The sticker, big as a name tag, read, CCGNS 342. She typed with a little smile, a private joke between her and the keyboard, then scrolled, and scrolled, and printed. The printer behind her chirped and spit out a sheet. She glanced back, snatched it, and tucked it under a clipboard, but not before I saw my name on the page in thick black font. Opal Grant. My stomach fell like an elevator. A white-hot line of anger drew itself across the inside of my chest. I stood there, half hidden by the corner, watching her stroll toward Donna's office with that steady day-shift gait, like she was carrying a casserole to a neighborhood potluck. I took out my phone, snapped a photo of the workstation sticker, tapped open voice memos, and recorded the exact model number, whispering it like a spell. Then I turned to the tiny dome camera above the station, one I'd never noticed in 6 months of nights, and stared at it until my reflection stared back, small and dark in the glass. If that camera caught who printed what and when, I could prove it. But to pull footage, I'd have to request it officially, which meant tipping my hand, which meant Taryn might get smarter, faster. I could feel the clock starting in my ribs. In the reflection of the camera, I saw Donna's door open. Taryn stepped out, lighter, smirking like she'd just tasted the frosting. She locked eyes with me across the ICU hall and smiled too wide. "Enjoy med-surg, Opal," she said, voice a perfect blend of pity and victory. "You always said you like learning." I smiled back, flat and bright. "I do." I slipped my phone into my pocket and walked away before she could see my hands shaking. In the elevator, steel walls closing around me, my mind clicked into a different gear. No more humiliation. Strategy. I was going to gather praise. I was going to pull training records. I was going to build a wall so tight it would soundproof the truth from her lies. And then, I was going to find the seam in her story, and rip. The elevator doors parted on the ground floor. Standing there was HR's Roy, with a sealed envelope in his hand. He looked surprised to see me, like he'd rehearsed this moment with an empty hallway. "Opal," he said. "Got a minute? We need your signature acknowledging a formal escalation." He held the envelope out. My hand didn't move, because behind Roy, through the glass, I could see security walking toward the ICU with a keycard and Donna waving them through. Were they pulling camera footage? Or were they locking it down? "Opal?" Roy prompted. I took the envelope, and I felt something inside me sharpen to a point. Roy's envelope felt heavier than paper had any right to be. I took it like it was ticking. "Thanks," I said, and walked straight past the sliding glass doors, the Detroit wind cutting my face like it knew what I'd done wrong. At the bus stop, I tore the seal. Inside 3 typed pages, stapled, stamped with HR's watermark. The heading read, "Notice of Formal Investigation." The words blurred for a second. Investigation. Not review. Not temporary reassignment. No, this was the word that gets your badge deactivated and your ID photo shredded in a back office while someone wipes your login from the system. Multiple corroborating accounts, it said. Unprofessional communication with patients. Repeated incidents of delayed medication administration. There it was again, those same phrases, recycled like bad gossip. Only now, it was corroborated. By who? The letter didn't say. It ended with, "Employee is to refrain from contacting potential witnesses or accessing patient records until the conclusion of the review." Translation: sit quietly while your reputation burns. When I got home, I didn't sit. I paced. My apartment, tiny, 2nd floor, radiator clicking felt too small for what was happening. I replayed the last night in ICU, the look on Taryn's face when she said, "Enjoy med-surg." That little smirk had the confidence of someone who thought she was untouchable. She'd faked patient complaints. That much I knew. But now she had corroborating accounts, which meant she'd recruited someone. Probably another nurse, maybe a CNA, maybe someone desperate for more hours, like I'd been. I opened my laptop and logged into my personal email, not the hospital one. I pulled up my backup folder. I'm that person who keeps receipts, praise emails, letters from families, commendations from management, subject line after subject line. Thank you for your exceptional care, Opal. Night shift appreciation. You made my father's last night peaceful. I read every one until my anger steadied into clarity. If Taryn wanted to play paperwork, I'd drown her in it. The next morning, I called HR politely. Hi, this is Opal Grant. I received the notice regarding the investigation. Could I request access to review my personnel file? The woman on the phone, Sharon, sighed. Miss Grant, I'm afraid during an active investigation, we can't release the file. But I'm entitled to view my own employee record. That's true, she said, but the complaint documentation is confidential. You'll have a chance to respond when the review concludes. How long does that take? 2 to 4 weeks. I laughed, a quiet, tired sound. Great. Just enough time for the rumor mill to kill my career. Excuse me? Nothing, I said. Thank you. I hung up before I said something that would really stick to my record. At noon, I showed up at Cass Corridor anyway, not in scrubs, in jeans and a black coat, carrying a Dunkin' cup like camouflage. Hospitals are cities. If you look like you belong, no one questions you. I slipped in through the staff entrance, rode the elevator to 3, and waited until a group of nurses walked past the security camera near ICU. Then, I ducked into the alcove near the linen room. That's where the workstation stickers lived. NS1 through NS8. I counted them. NS3, her station. Sticker. CCGNS342. The same code from the fake medication entry. I took a photo, heart racing. Then I pulled out my phone and messaged someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Me, you still in IT, Kev? Kev. Technically. You still working nights? Me, temporarily not. Need help confirming a workstation ID. Quietly, Kev. Define quietly. Me. Like, don't lose your job over it, but if you happen to tell me who was logged into NS3 at 2:08 a.m. last Tuesday, I'd send you the biggest box of donuts Detroit has ever seen. He didn't respond for a while. I assumed that meant maybe. Back home, I couldn't rest. There's a special kind of insomnia when you know someone's rewriting your story. Every minute, your brain rewinds and replays the same scene, trying to edit the ending. I thought about Taryn, how she'd been passed over for nights 3 times. How she'd smile through staff meetings but cut your name from the schedule the second she could. How she called herself Type A, like it was a virtue, not a weapon. But why me? Then it clicked. My premium shifts. The extra pay. The overtime cap she couldn't reach because I already had it. This wasn't random sabotage, it was career theft. The next night, Kev finally texted back. Kev. You didn't hear this from me. Workstation CCGNS 342 was logged into by user TCOLE from 11:50 p.m. 5:30 a.m. Me. Tuesday? She printed 6 documents. System log shows one of them labeled under your name. Me. You're an angel. Kev. Nah, just hungry. I'll take Boston cream. I sat there staring at the screen until the numbers blurred into something almost holy. Proof. I had proof. She'd used my login to falsify chart data. That's not a policy violation, that's a federal one. HIPAA. Falsification of medical records. People lose licenses for that. I could have marched straight to Donna and HR with it, but I stopped myself. Because if I came at her now, she'd spin it, say I hacked something, violated privacy, whatever. HR would freeze me out again. No, I needed to play it clean. I needed more than digital breadcrumbs. I needed undeniable, real-world testimony. So I made a list of allies. 1. Elise. CNA. Night shift. Always on my side. 2. Mr. Barker. The patient's son who'd written a glowing review about my care the same week the fake complaint happened. 3. Donna. The supervisor who used to believe in me before the storm. 3 potential witnesses. But the next morning, before I could even call Elise, she texted me first. Elise. Hey, are you okay? Taryn said HR's looking into you for patient mistreatment. That's not true. right? My chest tightened. Not true wasn't enough. Lies spread faster than the truth ever could. Me. It's not. Don't believe her. Can we talk after shift? Elise. Yeah. Just be careful. She's been hanging out in Donna's office a lot lately, saying she's covering nights for you. Um, that was the moment I knew. Taryn wasn't just faking complaints. She was rewriting my reputation, one whisper at a time, and she was doing it while smiling for the cameras. If I didn't act fast, I'd be branded before the review even started. So I drafted a plan. Step 1. Collect praise letters, emails, patient surveys. Step 2. Secure proof Kev's message, photo of the workstation. Step 3. Record interactions, every conversation, every meeting. If she was going to lie in the light, I'd catch her in it. At 6 a.m., the next morning, I was waiting outside the staff entrance when Donna walked in. Morning, she said, startled. You're not on schedule. I know, I said softly. But I think someone's using my login after hours. Her eyebrows shot up. That's serious. I can prove it. I showed her the photo of the workstation sticker, told her about the 2:08 a.m. timestamp, told her I'd seen Taryn printing under my name. Donna listened, no expression. But her silence was its own kind of fear. Finally, she said, Opal, this isn't something I can handle alone. You're accusing a senior nurse of falsification. We'll need to involve HR and IT. I know. And if you're wrong, I'm not. Her eyes softened. Just for a second, I saw the woman who used to laugh with me over instant ramen in the break room. Let me make a few calls, she said. Discreetly, she started toward her office, then paused. But Opal, keep this to yourself, please. I nodded, but as she walked away, I saw movement at the end of the hall. Taryn, leaning against the wall with her coffee, watching us. Our eyes met. Her smile was razor thin, and I realized Donna might not be the only one making calls. The next few days blurred together in caffeine and nerves. I went to med-surg, smiled like nothing was wrong, and waited for the phone to ring with Donna's few discreet calls. It didn't. Every beep, every overhead page, every footstep behind me felt suspicious. Hospitals have this way of amplifying silence. You start hearing your own heartbeat over the hum of the machines. I could feel eyes on me. Some sympathetic, most curious. Gossip spreads through nurses' stations faster than infection through an open wound. When I walked past the charting area, conversation stopped mid-sentence. Someone would cough. Someone else would suddenly find the coffee machine fascinating. That's how I knew Taryn had been talking. I caught her one afternoon near the break room, surrounded by 2 day-shift nurses who used to greet me warmly. Now, they smiled like I was a stranger they'd already judged. Taryn looked up, pretending surprise. Opal, how's med-surg treating you? It's fine, I said, voice steady. Busy, different kind of pace. She tilted her head like a curious bird. I bet. You know, ICU isn't the same without you. Her tone was sweet, but her eyes cold, measuring. I'm sure you're holding it together just fine, I replied. That flicker of annoyance behind her smile told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't broken yet, and that bothered her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my couch with my laptop open, the soft light painting my face in blues and whites. I read every email again, praise from patients, commendations from supervisors. Each one was a lifeline back to who I really was before the rumors started erasing me. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Kev. Kev. Heads up. HR just requested access to audit logs from the same night you mentioned. TCOLE's account was flagged. HR just 5. Kev C. Me. Seriously? Kev. Yeah, but it might have come from Donna. Someone's stirring the pot. Me. Then it's starting. I gon' have tell bien tu mère. Kev, careful Opal. If she's scared, she'll push back hard. I stared at the message until the words sank into me like cold water. If Taryn felt threatened, she'd fight dirtier. The next morning, Donna called. Opal, can you come to my office? Quietly. Her voice was lower than usual, almost nervous. When I walked in, she closed the blinds. The air smelled like burnt coffee and stress. HR's escalating, she said. They're aware of inconsistencies in the complaints. I didn't say your name, but they might connect it. Inconsistencies? I asked. 2 of the patient IDs from the complaints don't match anyone admitted that week. So they're fake. Donna nodded, her jaw tightening. I can't prove who entered them, but IT confirmed your account wasn't active at the time of one complaint. It's something. That's more than something. She sighed. Be careful. If HR thinks you've been digging around their system without authorization, they'll turn on you to protect policy. Even if you're right. That hit like a gut punch. In hospitals, truth doesn't matter as much as procedure. When I left her office, I ran into Elise. Hey, she whispered, pulling me aside. Taryn's been asking if you talked to Donna. She's getting jumpy. Did she say why? Elise hesitated. She said HR's probably gonna clear you, but she's telling people you're playing the victim. I laughed softly. Playing the victim? That's rich. She's nervous, Elise said. I've seen her in the charting room late after shift, like she's deleting stuff. Deleting? Yeah. Logs, notes, whatever she's been messing with. If you want to catch her, you need eyes on that station. I looked toward the hall, where the glow of computer screens painted the tiles pale blue. Then that's exactly what I'll do. That night, I came back. Not as an employee, just as someone who refused to be erased. Kev had helped me set up a small voice recorder, legal, discreet, time-stamped. I clipped it to my ID badge and walked in like I belonged. Donna had given me temporary clearance to retrieve personal items. That was my cover. When I reached the ICU, the unit was quiet. Monitors beeped softly, ventilators hissed, and at the far end, there she was, Taryn. Alone at workstation NS3. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, eyes darting between the screen and a printed list. I took a slow breath and walked closer, pretending to check the supply cabinet nearby. She didn't notice me until I spoke. Late night for a day shifter. She jumped slightly, then smiled without warmth. Donna asked me to finish up some reports. Short staff, you know how it is. I do. I watched the screen from the corner of my eye. My name was right there in a file window. Incident. Opal. G. What's that? I asked. Just some chart audits, she said quickly, minimizing the window. Policy stuff. I'm sure. Her hand trembled just a little as she reached for her coffee. I heard HR's asking about you, I said. She froze, just for a second. Oh, really? They're reviewing the complaint logs, looking for inconsistencies. Her jaw tightened. You're really reaching, Opal. Am I? Her smile faltered. You're lucky they haven't suspended you yet. I leaned in, lowering my voice. And you're lucky I haven't shown them the system logs that prove you used my login. Her eyes flicked up sharply. You can't prove that. I already did. The silence between us was thick, electric. Then she laughed, soft and venomous. You think anyone's going to believe you over me? You're already under investigation. I'm spotless. Not for long. Cute, she said, standing up and grabbing her clipboard. You always were idealistic. Let's see how that works out. She brushed past me, perfume sharp and cloying, and walked toward the exit. As she left, the recorder in my pocket blinked red, still running. Her voice, her words, her threat all captured. That was the first time in weeks I smiled. But when I looked at the computer she'd been using, the smile vanished. On the screen was a half-written note. Subject: Escalation. Nurse Grant. Possible chart tampering. She was trying to frame me again. I took a photo, saved the timestamp, and logged out. Then I turned toward the hallway and froze, because standing by the door, arms crossed, expression unreadable, was Donna. She'd seen everything. Opal, she said quietly, what are you doing here this late? I swallowed hard. Proving something. About Taryn? Yes. She's been forging complaints, falsifying records, trying to cover her tracks. Donna looked from me to the workstation. The screensaver had kicked in, but she didn't need to see what I'd seen. Come with me, she said. In her office, she locked the door, sat down, and said, "If what you're saying is true, I'll need to take this to HR first thing in the morning." "You have to," I said, "before she erases everything." Donna hesitated. "Opal, she's close with upper management. Her aunt's the head of the board." I stared at her. "You're kidding." "I wish I were." That explained everything. The confidence, the smirk, the untouchable attitude. If she had family upstairs, she wasn't just manipulating me, she was protecting her dynasty. Donna leaned forward. "Let me handle this my way. Quietly. No one else can know, not yet." I nodded. But inside, something didn't sit right. Because as I left her office, I noticed her computer screen still on. A single open email draft visible through the glass. Subject line, urgent, concerning behavior. O. Grant. The email subject line burned into my brain all night. Urgent, concerning behavior. O. Grant. I couldn't unsee it. Couldn't unthink it. Donna had said she was on my side, that she'd handle it quietly. But what if quietly just meant carefully turning me in? By sunrise, paranoia wasn't just a feeling, it was oxygen. I sat on my couch with cold coffee and shaking hands, replaying the whole week like a crime scene. I had proof, a recording, timestamps, photos, and yet, I was the one under investigation. Every time I tried to breathe, my brain whispered, "What if they're all in on it?" Detroit outside was gray and humming, the kind of day that never really wakes up. I showered, put on scrubs, and told myself to move. If I froze, they'd bury me. When I got to Cass Corridor, HR's Roy was waiting by the elevators, clipboard in hand, eyes rehearsed. "Opal, morning, can we talk?" I forced a smile. "Of course." He led me into a small conference room that smelled like sanitizer and secrets. On the table sat Donna, and beside her, Taryn. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. Taryn looked perfect, as always, pressed uniform, neat bun, lips, the color of self-confidence. She didn't look nervous, she looked ready. Donna wouldn't meet my eyes. Roy cleared his throat. "We've received additional reports that you accessed hospital systems without authorization, including audit logs and patient records." I felt heat rise up my neck. To defend myself. To prove the complaints were falsified. Taryn folded her arms. "So you admit it?" "I admit nothing illegal," I said. "I gathered information tied to my own name data someone else manipulated." Roy raised an eyebrow. "Do you have evidence of that claim?" "Yes." I reached into my bag, pulled out printed copies of the workstation logs, and placed them on the table. "The system shows TCOLE logged into the ICU terminal under my account. That's falsification." Taryn didn't even flinch. "That's impossible. I was homesick that night. Ask payroll." Donna finally spoke. "HR already checked. Taryn filed a sick day report for that shift." I blinked. A report she could have filed after the fact. To cover her tracks. Roy frowned. "Miss Grant, these are serious accusations." "They're serious crimes," I snapped. "And I have more proof audio recordings, time-stamped evidence." Donna's tone turned sharp. "You recorded staff without consent?" For a second, the room tilted. "That's not the issue," I said. "She admitted she's been trying to destroy my reputation." Taryn smirked, leaning forward. "Then play it." Her confidence was infuriating. I reached for my phone, thumb hovering over the voice memo app, but before I could press play, Roy said quietly, "Before you do that, Miss Grant, you should know HR policy forbids audio recording on hospital property without authorization. Doing so could lead to termination." The words hit like a slap. Taryn's smile widened. "Oh, Opal, you didn't?" I looked at Donna, desperate. "You told me to protect myself." She shook her head slightly. "Not like this." That was the moment I realized I'd been outplayed. They'd turned my defense into ammunition. Roy stood up. "Until further notice, we're placing you on administrative leave pending review. HR will contact you regarding next steps." Taryn exhaled softly, almost a sigh of satisfaction. I gathered my papers slowly, forcing my face to stay neutral. even as my stomach twisted into knots. As I turned to leave, Taryn whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "You should have stayed quiet." I didn't respond. I just walked out before she could see the tremor in my hands. Outside, the air bit cold and metallic. I sat in my car for 10 whole minutes, staring at the steering wheel, trying to breathe through the noise in my head. Administrative leave. That's hospital speak for exile. No paycheck, no schedule, no access, no purpose. But also, no leash. They thought sidelining me would stop me. It wouldn't. If they wanted quiet, they were about to get the opposite. That night, I called Kev. "Hey," he answered cautiously. "I heard you got pulled from the floor." "I did," I said. "But I'm not done." He sighed. "Opal, HR's crawling all over this. If you dig too deep, I'm already buried, Kev. Help me dig the rest of the way." A pause. Then, "What do you need?" "I need proof she wasn't homesick. Security footage, access logs, anything." He exhaled. "You realize if I get caught, I'll take the blame." He laughed softly. "You already are the blame." "Exactly." Another pause. Then, "All right. Give me a few hours." By midnight, he sent me a message. "Kev. Found something." Taryn's ID badge was scanned at 11:56 p.m. Tuesday in the ICU. Not home. Not sick. Me. "You're sure?" "Kev. 100%. Security camera at the nurse's station caught her too. She was there. Alone. Me. "Can you send me the clip?" "Can't. It's on a secure server. But I can describe it. She's printing documents, stuffing them into a folder labeled Opal G. Complaints." Me. "You just saved my career." "Kev. Not yet. HR still owns the narrative. You need a witness." He was right. Digital proof could vanish, but human testimony? That was harder to erase. The next day, I went to Elise's apartment. She answered in pajamas, eyes wide. "Opal, what are you doing here?" "Opal, I need your help, please." We sat on her couch, cheap candles burning, the hum of Detroit traffic outside. I told her everything from the fake complaints to the meeting ambush to the footage Kev found. Her expression hardened. I knew something was off. Taryn was bragging about clearing the path for herself. I thought she meant the schedule, not you. "Will you tell HR that?" She hesitated. "If I do, she'll come after me too." "She already has," I said softly. "She's rewriting the truth one person at a time. Today it's me. Tomorrow it'll be you." Elise stared at her hands, then nodded slowly. "Okay. I'll talk to Donna." Relief flooded me like warmth after frostbite. But before I could leave, Elise added, "You should know something. I overheard Donna on the phone yesterday. She said HR's planning to close the investigation next week." My breath caught. "Already?" "She said they're finalizing their report, something about terminating the problem quietly." My skin went cold. "They mean me," I whispered. Elise's silence was all the confirmation I needed. That night, I sat by my window, Detroit lights flickering like restless hearts below. They thought they could finish this quietly. They thought I'd go down in shame, with no one to listen. But I had something Taryn didn't. Truth. And nothing left to lose. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice memo. The one HR said could get me fired. Then I clicked share and sent it to 3 people, Kev, Elise, and an anonymous email address I found on the hospital's website, Local Press Detroit at inbox.com. If HR wanted silence, I was about to make noise. By the time the sun rose, I'd already crossed the line. The recording was out there in the inbox of a Detroit local journalist whose pinned tweet said, "Send your stories. We protect whistleblowers." I didn't know if they'd even listen. But I'd done it. I'd taken my story outside the hospital walls. My stomach was in knots, half terror, half adrenaline. I'd gone from night shift nurse to liability overnight. 2 days passed. No call from HR. No word from Donna. The silence was worse than confrontation. I filled the hours pacing my apartment, rereading the HR letter like it might change if I looked hard enough. Then, just as I started to think maybe nothing would happen, My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Miss Grant? The voice was male, clipped, professional. This is Eric Lawson from the Detroit Ledger. You sent us a recording? My breath caught. Yes. I listened. It's compelling. But before we consider publishing, we'll need corroboration documents, witnesses, timestamps. I have all of it, I said, standing up like my body couldn't hold still anymore. Workstation logs, emails, even an eyewitness. Good. Can you meet me this afternoon? Somewhere quiet. Good. We agreed on a coffee shop downtown Neutral Ground. The cafe was all exposed brick and lo-fi music. I spotted Eric immediately. Late 30s, glasses, laptop open, posture like he'd been living on caffeine for years. He gestured me over. You're brave to come. Or stupid, I said. He smiled faintly. Sometimes it's the same thing. I handed him a folder, printouts, screenshots, the whole digital autopsy of my career. He flipped through it fast, eyes narrowing. This coworker Taryn Cole, she's still working night shifts? Yeah, probably sitting at the same desk she used to forge my name. And management? Looking the other way, I said. Her aunt's on the hospital board. Eric nodded slowly. That tracks. We've covered Cass Corridor before. They don't like scandals, especially ones that mess with funding. He closed the folder. I'll verify this. If it checks out, we'll publish. The words hit me harder than I expected. Publish, I repeated. He looked me in the eye. Once it's out, you can't take it back. You ready for that? I didn't answer right away. I just thought about my patients, the ones who'd thanked me, the families who trusted me at 3 a.m. Yeah, I said finally. I'm ready. The next day, I got a text from Elise. Elise, HR just called a meeting for tonight. Taryn's nervous. I think something's happening. My pulse quickened. Maybe the story was already shaking loose. Then another text came in, this time from an unknown number. Unknown. You think you're clever? You have no idea what you've started. No name. But I didn't need one. Taryn. I felt my hands tremble, but my anger burned hotter than my fear. If she was threatening me, she was scared. And scared people make mistakes. That evening, I went back to the hospital parking lot. I wasn't allowed inside, but I didn't need to be. From my car, I could see the third-floor windows of the ICU. The familiar hum of fluorescent light spilled out like a heartbeat. Around 9 p.m., Taryn walked out the side door, coat half-zipped, phone pressed to her ear. I rolled down my window just enough to hear faint snippets carried by the cold wind. She sent it. I don't know how much they have. We need to. Then she turned her head and froze. Her eyes met mine through the dark. For one suspended second, neither of us moved. Then, she hung up and stormed toward my car. I stepped out before she could yank the door open. What do you want, Opal? She hissed. You've already embarrassed yourself enough. Funny, I said. You look embarrassed. She clenched her fists. Whatever you think you're doing, it won't stick. HR's on my side. Donna's on my side. You're just a bitter little night nurse who couldn't handle losing. I smiled slightly. You should check the ledger tomorrow. Her expression faltered. What? You'll see. She stared at me like she was trying to read whether I was bluffing. Then she shook her head, laughing nervously. You wouldn't. Watch me. She turned, muttering something under her breath, and stormed off into the dark. At 6:43 the next morning, my phone exploded with notifications, messages, calls, mentions. The Ledger headline blazed across my screen. Detroit nurse accuses hospital staff of falsifying patient complaints, evidence points to cover-up. My photo wasn't there, thank God, but the details were unmistakable. A night shift nurse in her 20s. ICU, Cass Corridor General. The story quoted anonymous sources, verified logs, and a pattern of internal manipulation to control premium scheduling. The hospital looked guilty. Taryn looked worse. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. It was real. The truth was out. For 5 glorious minutes, I felt vindicated. Then came the crash. At 7:15 a.m., Donna called. What did you do, Opal? I told the truth, I said quietly. They're tearing us apart, she hissed. Corporate's here. Legal's here. HR's in meltdown. Taryn's threatening to sue. They want me to suspend you indefinitely. Let them, I said. They can't fire me for telling the truth. They can fire you for violating confidentiality, for sharing internal records. You could lose your license. Her words sliced through my adrenaline like ice water. Donna, I whispered. She falsified medical documentation. That's the real violation. She didn't respond right away. Then, quietly, I hope you have more proof than what you gave that reporter, because this is about to get ugly. She hung up before I could answer. By noon, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, patients, nurses I hadn't spoken to in months. Some messages were supportive, others vicious. You're brave for speaking up. You ruined your own career. Hope it was worth it, liar. But then Elise called, voice trembling. Opal, you need to hear this. HR just suspended Taryn. Effective immediately. What? They found inconsistencies in her files. IT traced her login to multiple fake complaint entries. Donna confirmed it. For a second, the world went still. Are you serious? As a heart attack, she said. They're calling it a pending review, but she's gone. I sat back on the couch, staring at the ceiling, the weight of it all crashing down at once. Taryn was finally exposed. It should have felt like victory, but it didn't, because the hospital still blamed me for leaking the story, and the board her aunt wasn't going down without a fight. That evening, Kev texted me. Kev. Just heard. They're trying to pin the leak on Donna. Be careful. Kev. Me? Donna? Kev. Yeah. They think she fed you info. Taryn's aunt is furious. HR wants a scapegoat. I closed my eyes, guilt settling like lead in my chest. Donna had helped me. Maybe not perfectly, but she didn't deserve this. And now, my revenge had collateral damage. As night fell over Detroit, I stood at my window, watching headlights crawl across wet asphalt. Justice had come, but not clean. Taryn was suspended. The hospital was in chaos. And somewhere between victory and ruin, I realized something ugly. I hadn't just taken my power back, I'd lit a fuse. And I had no idea how far the explosion would reach. The next morning, Detroit was all static and snowlight, the kind of gray that settles into your bones. I hadn't slept. Not really. The story was everywhere, blogs, local radio, Twitter threads, dissecting my voice like I was a true crime case. Half the comments called me a hero, the other half called me a liar. That's the price of truth in public. It never stays yours once you speak it. I made myself coffee I couldn't drink and waited for the fallout. It came faster than I expected. At 9, her voice was hoarse. They're asking me to resign, she said. I closed my eyes. Donna, I'm so sorry. Don't be. They needed someone to blame, and I already knew too much. I should have seen it coming. Are they going after my license? She hesitated. Not yet. The board's in chaos. Taryn's aunt is on leave. HR's director stepped down. Everything's frozen until legal finishes their audit. So it's not over. Not by a long shot, she said. But listen, whatever happens next, don't let them scare you into silence. You're not the villain here, Opal. You're the reason this whole place is being forced to tell the truth. Her voice broke on that last word. Then the line went dead. I stared at my phone for a long time, feeling both grateful and guilty. She'd been my mentor, my protector, and now she was collateral too. By noon, the ledger dropped another article. Internal audit confirms. Falsified complaints at Cass Corridor General. Whistleblowers' claims substantiated. There it was. Proof. According to the piece, IT logs, camera footage, and HR memos confirmed that multiple patient complaints had been manually fabricated and linked to my profile. The person responsible? An unnamed senior nurse currently on leave pending disciplinary review. We all knew who that was. Taryn Cole. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was vindication. My name was clean again. That evening, I got a message request on social media. No profile picture, no name, just the letter T. T. You think you've won? You destroyed my life. I stared at it for a moment, then typed back. Me. You did that yourself. No response came, but I didn't need one. A week later, I was sitting in a meeting room with two members of the hospital's ethics committee. They'd invited me in for an official statement. The air smelled sterile. The blinds were closed. My badge still worked, though my shifts didn't. Miss Grant, one of them said, we want to acknowledge the integrity you showed in coming forward. Cass Corridor General has implemented a new audit system for all patient complaints. Your situation exposed a serious internal flaw. I nodded slowly. I didn't do it for policy change, I said. I did it because I was being erased. The older woman across from me smiled softly. Sometimes that's exactly what brings reform, the ones who refuse to disappear. Her words hit deep. They told me I'd be reinstated. Same pay, same role, new department. ICU was tainted ground now, and I didn't argue. When I walked out of that office, I finally let myself breathe. A few weeks passed before I saw her again. It was late February, bitter cold, and I was picking up coffee before my shift. When I stepped out of the cafe, there she was, Taryn. No uniform, no clipboard, just a woman in a gray coat, hair unkempt, eyes hollow. For a second, neither of us spoke. The street noise filled the silence. Then she said, "You ruined me." I swallowed. "You ruined yourself." She laughed once, bitter and small. "You think any of this fixes what they did to you? To me? They'll find someone else to chew up next." "Maybe," I said, "but at least now they'll know someone's watching." She shook her head, smirking faintly. "You sound just like me once, before I learned how the game really works." "I'm not playing anymore," I said. "Then you'll lose." She turned and walked away into the snow. I watched her go, the gray of her coat fading into the gray of the city, until she was gone. Back at the hospital, everything looked the same but felt different. New faces at the nurses' station. New policies pinned to the bulletin board. People whispered when I walked by, not with suspicion this time, but something like respect, or maybe caution. Either way, I could work again. That was enough. My first night back on shift, I stood by the window overlooking the city. The lights shimmered like little truths refusing to go dark. Elise came up beside me, handing me a cup of vending machine coffee. "Feels strange without her here, huh?" she said. "Yeah," I murmured. "But quieter. Peaceful." She nodded. "You did it, Opal. You actually won." I smiled faintly. "Maybe. But I learned something bigger than winning." "What's that?" "That revenge isn't justice," I said. "Justice is when the truth finally speaks louder than the lies." Elise sipped her coffee. "Still sounds like revenge with better lighting." We laughed quietly, the kind of laugh you only get after surviving something that nearly broke you. That night, one of my patients, a frail older man, took my hand as I adjusted his oxygen. "You got kind eyes," he said softly. "You one of the good ones." It hit me harder than it should have. "Thank you," I whispered. He smiled, drifting back to sleep. And there, in the hush of the monitors and the soft hum of machines, I remembered why I'd started nursing in the first place. Not for shifts or pay differentials, not for recognition, but for moments like that where truth and care and humanity actually meet. Months later, the Ledger ran a follow-up story. Cass Corridor General announces new whistleblower protections after falsification scandal. They quoted me anonymously this time. "The hardest part isn't proving the truth. It's holding on to yourself while you do." When I read that line, I realized I didn't want to be known as the nurse who took revenge. I wanted to be the nurse who refused to let injustice be the last word. So if you're listening, if you've ever been lied about, cornered, or humiliated for telling the truth, remember this. They can take your schedule. They can take your paycheck. They can take your name off the whiteboard. But they can't take your integrity unless you hand it to them. That's what I learned in the quiet hours of the night shift, under humming lights and sleepless skies. Sometimes, justice doesn't come easy. But when it finally does, it's worth every sleepless night.